Hi, I'm Howard Chui for howardforums.com, and here's my video review of the Samsung Galaxy S4. Last year, the Samsung Galaxy S3 did really well, so Samsung has wisely stuck with the same look for the Galaxy S4. It's roughly the same shape and size as the GS3. The body has a new pattern on it. The screen is slightly bigger, so it eats into the space around the buttons. Screen resolution is now 1920 by 1080. While 1920 by 1080 is a really high resolution, the difference between it and last year's batch of 1280 by 720 displays isn't as great as you'd think. The real improvement lies in two areas. First off, the screen color now looks much more natural. The GS3 screen had a bad tendency to make everything kind of green or bluish. It's hard to capture this on video, so you'll have to take my word for it. The other improvement is that the screen now works outdoors when it's bright and sunny. How big a difference does this make? If I was to rate the GS3's screen's outdoor performance on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a mediocre 2. The GS4 isn't class leading in this regard, but now it's a very useful 5 or 6 out of 10. Inside, you'll find Qualcomm's Snapdragon 600 processor running at a blistering 1.9 GHz. You also get the requisite 2 GB of RAM and 16 GB of storage. The GS4 runs the latest version of Android, 4.2 compared to 4.1 on the HTC One and Sony Xperia ZL, though I wouldn't be surprised if those two phones got their 4.2 upgrades soon. Check this out. The GS4 is one of the few phones out there that supports LTE on frequency band 7. I won't bore you with the details of the different LTE bands, but check it out. That's right, it can go up to 100 megabits per second. Juice is supplied by a 2600 mAh battery, bigger than the Xperia ZL and HTC One, which have 2300 mAh batteries. It's also worth pointing out that the GS4's battery is removable. As far as battery life goes, a lot depends on how bright you leave the screen. If you leave it on auto brightness, it should make it through the day. Aside from raising the megapixel count from 8 to 13 megapixels, Samsung has completely redone the camera software. Now you can shoot with the front or the rear camera, but what you can now do is also shoot with both of them at the same time, both pictures or video. So here's the Ray, our cameraman. The front-facing camera shows up in a postage stamp in this frame here, and you can choose different frames like this postage stamp or this Polaroid thing, or there's a heart. And when you record the video or pictures, it just shows up like this. It's just a picture or video with your frame wherever you want it to be. I wonder if Samsung came up with the idea for this when they were watching a TV show where they had a sign language interpreter at the bottom. Oh, see, that's the crossing sound. Ding, 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 ding. The interface now resembles the Galaxy cameras, especially the different modes. Aside from the usual modes, there's a really neat drama mode. In drama mode, you hold the GS4 stationary, then it shoots your subject at an extremely high frame rate. Then it compares the frames and tries to place your subject in multiple places. My sample pictures aren't very good because there wasn't much light, but you can actually get some pretty interesting shots outside with this feature. Just watch out, because drama shots are only captured at 2 megapixels. Last year, Samsung added S-Beam and pop-up video to the Galaxy S3. And they added multi-view to the Note 2. Of course, Samsung also added a bunch of features which I thought weren't all that useful. Smart Stay, which is a bunch of gesture-based features which I turned on, tried them, and then turned off. The GS4 continues this tradition. It adds a lot of new software features. Some of them are useful, and a lot of them are just fluff, and they're just there to help sell the phone. Probably the coolest new feature is Group Play. Here's part of a group play demo I posted a while back.
This group in a second. Okay, so now we have, do you mind?
Not at all.
So while we're doing this, I can actually use this device to do master control. I actually control separately each device.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So if we have actually up to 5 devices, we can actually have full surround sound.
S-Translator is able to translate both text and voice. Let's try it out. I'm going to speak English and it's going to translate it to French. Where's the washroom? And see, there's the text in French. You can also read it. You can also translate to these other languages.
¿Dónde está el servicio?
These are the other languages you can choose. Check it out. There's both English UK and English US. I wonder if it can translate aluminum. You know, aluminum. Do you have a cigarette? Story Album looks at your pictures and sorts them by date and place, and then automatically creates virtual photo albums based on on the pictures you took that day. And so you can see we went to IKEA that day. I took a bunch of pictures of my daughter and made this photo album. And if you like it, you can actually order a physical one online. Pretty neat, huh? The GS4 is able to sense when your finger is over the screen and not touching it. Samsung calls this feature Air View, and you can use it to magnify text by holding your finger over the screen. You can also use it to scrub through video. This feature is kind of useful, but it's kind of hard to find the right distance. You see, it's hard to find where the sweet spot is, so you can't really use this when you're walking around unless you have really, really steady hands, which I don't. It also means that you can use the screen when you're wearing gloves. Air gestures allow you to use the phone without touching it. I'll demo a few select ones. Air Jump allows you to scroll web pages. Air Browse lets you move from picture to picture. If the screen is off, you can move your hand towards the phone to see how many notifications you have. Samsung has expanded their smart screen feature with Smart Pause. So when you're watching video, it pauses if you turn your head away. It's sort of like playing games with a cat. Another feature that Samsung has added is that when you're looking at the screen, you can scroll it by tilting it. It doesn't work very well. As you could see, it was tilting earlier when I didn't want it to. And right now it's trying to find my eyes. Okay, there. So you can scroll it like this, and it works occasionally. I doubt a lot of people will use many of these features. Unless you don't have fingers or arms, it's easier just to pick up your phone and use it. There's a reason why most of these features are turned off by default. Still, I get the feeling that Samsung's software design process is like cooking spaghetti. They throw it against the wall and see what sticks. The screen looks great. It's a huge improvement over the one you get with the GS3. You see, the GS3 screen would turn black whenever it's sunny. The GS4 doesn't do this. This feature alone is worth the upgrade, although I should point out that the iPhone 5, Sony Xperia ZL, HTC One, plus many other phones are actually better than the GS4 in this regard. It's also fast. When I run benchmarks, the GS4 is the fastest Android phone that I've ever tested. And I know you're probably thinking that this is really gimmicky, but I really like how you can shoot with both the front and the rear facing cameras at the same time. There were a couple times where this feature really came in handy. I really wish more phones had this feature. If you use your phone to make calls, it's worth pointing out that the GS4 actually has really good call quality. And it also has a very useful loudness feature, which trades some sound quality for some more volume. You can just turn it on and off like this. If you're a power user, you'll love how both the battery and memory cards are removable. It's a feature that's becoming increasingly rare on higher-end phones since it adds a bit of space to them. You'll also love the flexible LTE banding. I wish Samsung ditched the buttons at the bottom and moved them onto the screen like the Xperia ZL. There just isn't enough room at the bottom to use the phone without accidentally pressing them with the palm of your hand. So you see, when I hold the phone like this, a lot of the times I'm on the back button. While the software has a lot of tricks, I found most of them aren't very useful. They're the sort of things you'll use once and then turn off. Really, they're just fluff. Features that Samsung puts into the phone so that you'll end up buying them, but then you end up not using them. Well, I like the camera's ability to take pictures and video with both cameras at the same time. The camera itself isn't that great indoors. I found indoor performance was very similar to the GS3, only with higher resolution. When there isn't much light, it's simply just not as good as the iPhone 5 or HTC One, although it is better than the Sony Xperia ZL. It really depends on how old your old phone is. If you have something from last generation, you'll notice a difference if you look for it. However, once you're using your apps instead of looking at the phone, you probably won't. After all, in the end, the smartphone is just a means for you to run your apps. Still, I'd get the GS4 if you have a GS3 and prefer a phone that works outdoor. That's about the only feature that has a real tangible benefit over the last generation. Otherwise, it's an evolutionary upgrade. It sort of reminds me of when Apple went from 4S to 5. Now, the iPhone 5, that's a tough one. I get asked this question all the time. If you already own a bunch of iOS apps, then I say stay with iOS. The GS4 offers more hardware, plus Android is really catching up with iOS in terms of apps. But the thing is, if you already have iOS, I don't think the GS4 offers enough for you to make the switch. I kind of threw the Q10 in since it costs about the same as the GS4, but you know what? I don't think the Q10 is aimed at the type of user that's going to shop for a GS4. The type of person that wants a Q10 is someone who values having a real keyboard above all else. It's not to say that the Q10 is a bad device, it's just there's really nothing else to buy if you want this. So if you're clinging to your old Blackberry with a keyboard and aren't convinced about touchscreen, then forget about the GS4. If you follow Howard forums and have read my reviews, you'll know that I'm a bit taken with the HTC One. So much so that I actually bought one for myself. So should you get the GS4? Well, on paper, the GS4 gives you more stuff. They have the same processor, but the GS4 is clocked faster. It's got a micro SD slot, 50 gigs versus 25 gigs of Dropbox space, a bigger battery, a bigger screen, more megapixels, more flexible LTE banding, and the TouchWiz software has a few more tricks up its sleeve. But you know what? The HTC One has a more useful screen. It has more built-in storage, although you can expand it with micro SDs, which, by the way, are dirt cheap these days. It also has better sounding speakers and a better sounding headphone out. It also has this sexy metal body, but most importantly, the HTC One has a stabilized camera. So while I prefer the One, they're actually really, really close. You can't really go wrong with either phone. It's a matter of personal preference. In the end, I'd give the Galaxy S4 a solid 9 out of 10 Howies. I'm Howard Chewy for Howard Forums. Make sure you check out my full written review at Howard Forums. Thanks for watching.